Welcome to So AmA, Media.2.0. I hope you find here what you were looking for. Thumbs up the video, share and subscribe if you haven't yet. Now let's get it. Enjoy! Anansi soon returned to Aso afterward and informed her of his success, then plotted against Osebo the leopard with her. Aso told Anansi to dig a hole to catch Osebo and cover it. Anansi caught on to her plan immediately and told her it was enough. Then, he went to the place where Osebo could normally be found. Anansi dug a deep pit in the ground, covered it with brushwood, and decided to return home, knowing that Osebo would eventually stumble into the pit as night drew near. Sure enough, Anansi returned to the pit the next morning and found Osebo trapped inside of it. Anansi feigned sympathy and asked the leopard why he was trapped inside. He asked Osebo if he had been drinking again, something Anansi had constantly warned the leopard about. And the spider continued his act, lamenting that he wanted to help Osebo but was certain that Osebo would attempt to eat him afterward. Osebo insisted that he would not harm Anansi, so the spider agreed to help him. Anansi went aside and cut 2 long sticks with his knife for the leopard to climb out of the hole with and told Osebo to stretch his arms wide, secretly leaving the leopard vulnerable. Osebo, unaware of yet another scheme by Anansi, then attempted to scale the sticks so that he could escape, but Anansi withdrew his knife again and tossed it at Osebo. The hilt of the knife struck Osebo's head and the leopard fell down into the pit, now unconscious. Satisfied that his scheme had worked, Anansi gathered some additional sticks and formed a ladder, descending to the bottom of the pit to collect Osebo. Anansi then gloated just as he had before and told the leopard about his bargain with Nyame, carrying him away to the sky god. Anansi then presented Osebo to Nyame when he arrived, and Nyame accepted Anansi's gift. The sky god, however, was still not convinced that Anansi would succeed in completing his challenge, and reminded the spider that he had yet to accomplish all of the tasks he was assigned. The spider returned home another time, deciding to capture Moesha the fairy after some thought. Anansi then decided upon a plan and carved an Akua doll. Next, the spider gathered the sap out of a gum tree, covering it until the Akua doll thus became very sticky, but Anansi was not done. He pounded some eto, mashed yams, collected by his wife Aso and covered the Akua doll's hand with it. The spider then gathered a basin and placed some eto inside of it. Once he had filled the basin, Anansi then took some of his silk and tied a string around the Akua doll's waist so that he could manipulate it, heading off to the land of fairies once he had finished. Anansi placed the doll in front of an odum tree, a place where fairies often congregated, and sat the basin with the eto in front of it as bait. Anansi then hid behind the odum tree and waited for one of the Moesha to appear. Soon, one came, lured away from her sisters by the eto that the spider had placed in front of the Akua doll. Enticed by the eto, Moesha asked the doll if she could have some of it. Anansi then tugged the Akua doll's waist and it nodded its head in response, which made Moesha excited. Moesha returned to her sisters and asked if they would allow her to eat some, noting that she, completely unaware of Anansi's trickery, had been offered some eto by the Akua doll. Moesha's sisters allowed her too, so the fairy returned to the basin and devoured the eto. When she had finished, Moesha thanked the Akua doll but Anansi did not tug his string. The Akua doll did not need to acknowledge Moesha's gratitude. Slightly upset, Moesha told her sisters what had happened and they advised her to slap the doll's face as recompense. Moesha agreed and then slapped the Akua doll, but her hand became stuck. Angered, the fairy informed them of what had happened, and another sister suggested that Moesha should slap the doll again, this time with her other hand. The fairy owed and tried again, only for her remaining hand to become stuck on the gum that covered the Akua doll. Moesha asked her sisters for help a final time, informing them that both her hands were now stuck. Another sister told Moesha to bludgeon the doll with the rest of her body, certain that Moesha would be successful this time in punishing the Akua doll. However, the fairy followed the advice of her sisters and only became stuck to the gum that covered the doll Anansi had laid in front of the odum tree entirely. Anansi then emerged from hiding and used the rest of the string he had tied around his doll to bind Moesha with his string entirely. He then mocked Moesha also, just as he had done to the others he had captured before her, and told the fairy of his scheme to offer her to Nyame as well. However, Anansi still had another task he wished to complete before he returned to the sky god. So AmA thanks you for tuning in. Please leave a comment. Grant Annie until the next video. Peace and much love to all.